to the Lost in Pretend podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Sealey, and in today's episode, I will be sharing with you a dream I call Life's a Simulation. I encourage you to sit on your bed, close your eyes, and allow this episode to become a soundtrack for your own imagination. Or grab a sketchbook and visualize these dreams in your own style. So let's get started. I am super excited. This is one of my most memorable dreams, and in fact, I will be sharing this dream strictly from memory. But before I get into it, I have to reiterate that I dream almost every single night, and by doing so, I've been able to study my dreaming patterns. And so because this is my first episode, I want to share some of those with you guys. So for one, my dreams fade as they do for many other people. Sometimes I remember them, sometimes I don't. And I will say that I tend to remember them more often just because I have a lot of practice with writing them down or recording them or talking to people about my dreams right after I wake up. And then in terms of what happens within a dream, I've noticed that I always dream in first person, so through my own eyes, as I experience life. So I would see my body and my arms if I were to look around me. And I only recently found out that some people dream strictly in third person. I had a conversation with one of my roommates, and she explained to me that whenever she dreams, she's always watching things happen to her body. She's always watching herself interact with other people, which I think is pretty interesting because I have experienced that in my dreams before, and I will be talking about what that is like when I share this dream in a few minutes, but it's never occurred for the entirety of one, only for a specific part of it. And on that same note, I've noticed that I never really see my facial features in a dream either. I had one a few months ago where I was getting ready with my roommates, I was doing my hair, and I wanted to go see what it looked like in the bathroom mirror. But I woke up before I could actually get there. And that is what prompted me to think, like, well, okay, maybe I should ask other people how they dream or whether or not they see themselves, because to me at least, I think it's very interesting. And I think if you were to analyze these things, you'd learn a lot about a person based on certain patterns that they've noticed in their own dreaming. Also, in terms of other people showing up in my dreams, if my family or if anyone that I have an actual relationship with in real life shows up in my dreams, then that relationship will remain the same. So my mom will always be my mom, my sister will always be my sister, my roommates will always be my roommates. And of course, I can develop a fake relationship with other people in my dreams as well. So someone else can show up as a pretend roommate all of a sudden. But if those actual people are in my dreams, then that particular relationship will stay the same. And if it's not for whatever reason, I automatically know what each or who each person in my dream is supposed to represent. I can also control my dreams, so lucid dream. I have a few dreams to share with you guys in other episodes, so I won't really get into that right now, but I will say that normally I am able to kind of influence exactly what happens in my dreams. Or if I were to wake up in the middle of it, I could kind of change the plot line and then go back to sleep, and it would follow what I want to happen next. It is quick for me to think about something and dream about it as well. I binge watched Steven Universe, and I dreamt that I was Steven very soon afterwards. So there's a pretty quick turnaround time of translating my thoughts into a subconscious storyline, which actually makes it a lot easier for me to figure out exactly what influenced my dreams. I like to say that dreams are always, always, always influenced by parts of our real life. It's just sometimes it's not as obvious as others. And lastly, and I think this is one of the most interesting facts about my dreaming, I dream in real time. So I dream with the knowledge and understanding of my current self in real life. So I've never dreamt that I was younger. I never dreamt that I was older, unless it was someone else that was supposed to represent me. and they looked different or they were a different age. But normally I dream exactly as I am in that present moment in real life. And sometimes I dream about sleeping in the exact position that I am sleeping while I'm dreaming, which is definitely a mouthful to say, but I will definitely unpack all of these things in coming episodes. But now it is time to get into this dream, which is called Life's a Simulation. I had this one not too long ago, maybe about a couple months ago, and I will be sharing it strictly from memory. So I remember sharing this dream with a few of my roommates not too long ago, and it was too good to keep to myself. So I'm really excited to get this one out there. It starts off with my mom teaching a class. I think I was in a classroom and she was the teacher, and we were watching something. There were other students around me. We were sitting down, crisscross applesauce, and my mom was behind the class, which is what makes me think that we were watching something. But it was a basic classroom setting, tiled floors, beige walls, pretty simple setup. But that has nothing to do with the rest of the dream, which makes me think that that event was the ending to another dream. I don't necessarily dream once per night. Sometimes I dream up to 3 times per night. And so I feel like that was the ending to dream number one, and everything that comes next was a completely separate dream. And then all of a sudden, I became omniscient, all knowing, super aware of myself and my surroundings, and I realized in an instant that life is a simulation and that I am stuck in a time loop, which is such a strange thing to realize all of a sudden. But I noticed that the time loop did not have a predetermined period of time. It was simply supposed to last as long as you didn't know that you were in that time loop. So, since I realized that I was in one, those were my last moments. And out of nowhere, the Grim Reaper shows up, and his plan is to end my life, basically restarting my time loop so that when I continued on, I would not exactly know that I'm in one. So every time loop begins with a lack of knowledge or understanding of your surroundings. And funny enough, of course, I did not have any memory or previous knowledge about any of my past runs through this time loop. Now, the Grim Reaper looked exactly how you would expect him to look. He had his scythe, he had his black robe, it was all torn. He basically looked exactly like the one from Family Guy, which is to be expected because I love Family Guy and I've watched many seasons of it. So it makes sense that that image of the Grim Reaper is what my subconscious would pull from. But I would also say that it was a combination of that one from Family Guy and Ghostface from Scream. So there was a skeleton slash mask situation going on underneath the robe. And as soon as he showed up in this classroom, it was my cue to run. So we were in this building and he chased me in and out of this building. At one point, it felt like, or it looked like, I was back in Costa Rica, in San Jose. I went to Costa Rica a few years ago, in high school actually, and for some reason, one of those images of San Jose and what it looked like at night popped up in this dream. And so that's the best way that I can describe what outside looked like. It looks like we were in front of a car dealership, which is not really important to the plot of the story, but it is important to understanding what this looks like for me. So, as I'm sure all characters feel in slashers, it didn't really feel like the Grim Reaper was running after me. It just kind of felt like he was always there. And so I was continuously running because one, I didn't want to die, of course, and two, I just did not want to restart this time loop and lose all of my knowledge on exactly what is going on around me. And you would expect that the Grim Reaper was supposed to use his scythe to end my life, but instead he had a knife to kill me with instead. And for some reason, I also knew that the knife wouldn't hurt me once he stabbed me with it. It was just kind of symbolic in a way where it was supposed to touch my chest, and as soon as it did, the time loop would start all over again. So I wasn't necessarily running away from the pain of dying. I was just running away from starting all over again, basically, without even realizing that I was starting all over again. Anyway, so this is the most interesting part of the dream, in my opinion. So we are running back and forth through this building. There are multiple hallways. It is relatively lit. Maybe it had some sort of like yellow ambiance, some sort of warm-ish orange ambiance. And I remember seeing a hallway and an elevator at the end of that hallway. And so I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe I should get into that elevator and try and escape the Grim Reaper that way. Now, even though we were running around this building for a little while, I did not yet have an understanding of where any of the staircases were. So I thought if I get into this elevator, I'll be able to buy myself some time, distract the Grim Reaper, escape him for a moment, and figure out, what I should do to get rid of him for good. Except as I am approaching the elevator, a few people get there before I do. Some Korean businessmen and businesswomen, about three of them. Honestly, what they looked like is not important to this story, but I wanted to mention it because it will give you guys an idea of how my subconscious decided to visualize this dream. To me, they also looked like K drama actors and actresses. They just looked very famous for some reason. Um, they had suits, they had briefcases, their hair was done very nicely, and they looked like they were of an elite status. Basically, I did not fit in with these people. And so as I get into this elevator, as soon as I step foot inside, they start staring at me. They start staring at me as if I did something wrong. And I'm looking around at them thinking, well, what are you doing? Like, we should get going. This elevator should close. We should close the doors. We should go somewhere else. Can you not see that I'm in danger? However, as soon as I step foot inside, not only are they staring at me, but the elevator also stops working. And I'm staring this Grim Reaper down as he's quickly approaching me down the hallway. And in thin air, as if there was a hologram in front of me, a yellow triangle warning label shows up with like an exclamation mark in the center. And I was dumbfounded. It felt like they were staring at me just the way that people in your subconscious would look at intruders, as in the movie Inception. And so it was definitely a moment of feeling like I was not supposed to be there. And this was not a part of the plan. This is not where my dream or the story was supposed to go. And so I'm realizing, okay, I need to get out of this elevator. And of course, as soon as I step foot outside, it magically starts working again, the doors close, and these people are gone for good. And so now I'm stuck in a hallway with a Grim Reaper with a knife who is chasing me down. And so my only option is to continue running. And I think at that point, I actually did find a staircase. I think I went up and down it a few times, but eventually we ended up in a room. It looked like a lab or an operating room. There was a lot of sterile tools and equipment in there, and there was a metal table that I jumped on top of, trying to get away from this Grim Reaper. But at this point, we were both in this closed space, and I was cornered. And at this point, this is when this dream became an out of body experience for me, as if it was symbolic to watch myself die in some way. So I'm fighting off this Grim Reaper and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, please don't hurt me. All of these things. I don't want to start the simulation all over again. I don't want to lose any knowledge of what this life is. And I'm doing that for a little while, but soon I get pretty tired of it and I realize that there's no way escaping it. And I finally come to terms with what is going to happen and the fact that it's not even going to hurt anyway. All the Grim Reaper is going to do is tap my chest where my heart is, and everything is going to start all over again. And that is exactly what happened. The Grim Reaper stabbed me, or touched my chest more accurately, with the knife, and all of a sudden I was experiencing something new. I was in a new space, and it didn't exactly feel like I was 100% in that new space, though. It kind of felt like there was a huge thought bubble and I was looking into a new room. It was still an out of body experience, so I was watching myself in this new room, and people were singing happy birthday to me, but they were around this thought bubble. They were in other parts of the room that I couldn't see from this perspective, so I did not get a chance to, see exactly what they looked like. Except I knew that they were singing to me, they were filling the room with happiness and song, and it was a great moment, per se. In an instant, I went from feeling terrified or complacent with the fact that my life was about to be restarted, or this time loop at least, to happy and joyous that I am celebrating this wonderful day. And because it was an out of body experience, of course, there was someone there representing me. And this time it was Betty White, which is very interesting. This entire dream did not make sense, but I thought this was especially an interesting choice. But Betty White, or someone that very closely resembled her, was wearing this tweed / knitted formal business suit with a blazer and a skirt, and there was a cake, a vanilla cake, with lots of beautiful frosting, beautiful buttercream frosting. There were a lot of candles, they were all lit, and this lady was looking down at this cake with pure joy, not knowing exactly what just happened, or the fact that none of this was real or within her or my control, as you could say. And then I woke up. So that concludes my dream Life's a Simulation. I started that day off feeling pretty confused and flustered since I was technically just killed by the Grim Reaper, but I got over it pretty quickly. So I thank you for listening, and I do wonder what this dream looks like for you and if there are any similarities between your subconscious and mine.